No way he said this, as offensive coordinator Wes Phillips sounds off when talking about the events of Week 10, and that's just the fire this team needs heading into Week 11. But first, Kevin O'Connell drops multiple key updates for players whose services will definitely be needed on Sunday against the Chicago Bears. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet and you want to join the 2,200 subscribers we currently have on the channel, last week we set out a goal to hit 2,200 before kickoff against the Baltimore Ravens, so let's set out for the same goal this week, and let's try and hit 2,300 for this kickoff week against the Bears in Week 11. You guys helped us reach our goal last week before we even kicked off, so thank you guys very much for that. So let's keep it going and try and hit 2,300 before Sunday. And with that, let's hop straight into it, which is multiple injury updates from Kevin O'Connell. So Kevin O'Connell had a press conference yesterday, and he dropped some huge updates. That one that we were really worried about heading into this week, and that was Jonathan Greenard, which he did say got some good news on JG. See how he does throughout the week. He's sore today, but we'll see if he can get some time in this week on the practice field. It potentially be available for Sunday, but I do think we avoided a long-term injury with him. So that was a very big stroke of good news for the Vikings, where I know that Ravens game, there wasn't too much to really be happy about, but at least this was a silver lining, where we were all very worried when we saw Jonathan Greenard go down and leave the game. We thought that, damn, this might be a really potentially a season ender. You could have thought it was a collarbone or something like that. Maybe it's just an AC joint sprain like Aaron Jones had. Hopefully it's just something that isn't going to put him even on IR. So Kevin O'Connell saying they avoided long term. That's great that he's not out for the season. Hopefully he's not out for more than just 1 or 2 games, but I can see them maybe pushing that to potentially 3 if that's the case, because this team likes to be safe. But they absolutely need to start winning games and stacking these games and going on a run if they have any hopes of wanting to make the playoffs. But thankfully, Jonathan Greenard, every fan was holding their breath. I know I was when I saw him down on the field. That was a terrible sight to see, and he was able to get off the field under his own power, which was good. They didn't need a cart or anything like that, so that's always a good sign. But this is also really big that Kevin O'Connell is saying, hey, we avoided the long-term thing, but now it's just a matter of, is it a week-to-week thing? Is it a short-term IR thing? Or is it a matter of him just being back on the field on Sunday and really pushing through an injury? But with this team liking to be cautious with injuries that aren't Carson Wentz, they like to just be, hey, if you're ready to go this week, I know if you're not 100%, we're not going to put you in there. But if this is a must-win game for the Vikings, like it is against the Chicago Bears, a division game, a division opponent that we've beaten already earlier in the season, and in a game where the Chicago Bears are 6-3, we're 4-5. We absolutely need to get a win here to get back to 500 and take the Bears down a notch, because this NFC North is looking very competitive. The Lions could go on a run and just run away with the division, but if the wild card is coming down to that second AFC or NFC North team, it's not going to be like last year where 3 NFC North teams make the playoffs. It's going to be very competitive throughout this year, and Jonathan Greenard is going to be a huge piece of that defense to make that happen. But of course, the injury updates did not stop there, as Kevin O'Connell did give us an insight on Theo Jackson and Josh Oliver, saying that Theo Jackson cleared the concussion protocol this morning, so he should be a full participant and be back this week. Josh Oliver should return to the practice field and work his way up to hopefully gaining us some snaps on Sunday, pulled from his press conference from yesterday. So this is also a really good sign for a couple of reasons here that might go under the radar, and that is that Josh Oliver, he's a really good run blocking tight end. So that opens up the run game for Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason to kind of do their thing. In that first game against Chicago in week 1, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason were able to get a few things going and have some really good positive things going. Aaron Jones scoring a touchdown of all things. Then against the Detroit Lions, when they were able to establish the run, it was a really good sign for them to kind of just start running over the Lions and kind of get that early lead and that momentum. And that was something that was very absent against the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't have Josh Oliver for that game, and it very much showed on the field with not having him in those run blocking. And of course, having Theo Jackson back in the secondary, this is a Chicago Bears team that loves to air the ball out. Caleb Williams is just slinging that thing out there this year, and he's also just been burning teams on the run. So having Jonathan Greenard back is a huge one to try and contain that from happening like they did in the first game for the second half in the first quarter or so. Caleb Williams kind of had a really good time scrambling with those scripted plays. Then he ran out of them. Here's hoping the same thing happens this week, but just containing him completely in the pocket. But he does like to air it out, and he has been throwing with really good efficiency this season. So having Theo Jackson back and just having as many hands on deck for this secondary as possible is going to be a big thing, because I think Brian Flores is going to impose a lot of stacked sets or formations with a lot of DBs in the secondary really loaded, when you have guys like DJ Moore and Roma Doomsday and Colson Loveland really having his emergence now, and then DeAndre Swift being that terrible threat at the running back like he is, and Kyle Monangai having an emergence as well. It's going to be a lot for the Vikings to handle, especially with the Chicago Bears in week 1, not having found that chemistry and that identity with that new Ben Johnson offense. Now that they kind of started getting things clicking and stacking wins here, that's going to be a little bit worrisome for the Vikings. So here's to hoping that they can stop that momentum with potentially having Theo Jackson and Josh Oliver back for the matchup. But the big one that a lot of people are also harping on is Ryan Kelly. As Kevin O'Connell was saying, we're still figuring out exactly when it takes place, but barring anything changing there, to anticipate maybe some opening his window at some point in time here soon. So this wasn't the update we necessarily wanted from O'Connell on the subject, just because we want to hear, when is Ryan Kelly going to be coming back, period? When is that window going to be opening? And when is this offensive line finally going to have all 5 out of 5 players playing at the same time for the first time this season? But it's going to be a little bit of a road to get there because he is still battling that concussion. So Kevin O'Connell kind of went into some coach speak, elaborating further on how he's been doing with that recovery, how he's feeling, and things like that, like staying in the hotel room, getting used to like different mentalities and mindsets again after being away with that concussion and just getting his mind right. Now this is a matter of now the Vikings just have to get fully healthy and have this momentum and play consistent football with this Vikings team that has been just going up and down all season. I know JJ McCarthy can look like he is the guy that the prince that it was promised for the Vikings in one week and then look like an absolute bust in the next week. But that's the thing here, folks. We can't get too high and we can't get too low on the JJ McCarthy stuff. With a brief sidebar here, I know that everyone is coming out with last week after we beat the Lions, everyone was just praising JJ McCarthy. Everyone, we got the guy. And this wasn't just Vikings fan. This was just the mainstream sports media as well. Then the second that he slips up and has a loss, everyone's just so quick to turn on him once again. So it's going to be a flip-flopping media thing, and I told you guys in that post-game video and after the Lions game that it's going to be flip-flopping a lot this season because of the growing pains and that it's going to be a little bit inconsistent at times, but it's to be expected when you have a first-year starting quarterback. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some struggles. We just got to bear with it here and hope that, hey, if we can have a decent season this year, goes to show that we can have a great season next year. But let us know what you guys thought of the injury updates here, and when do you guys think that we're going to see Ryan Kelly back on the field for Minnesota? Let us know down in the comments below. But that's going to take us into the second topic of the day, which is that Wes Phillips just sounded off in his press conference today when talking about the elephant in the room, and that was the pre-snap penalties. And he wasted no time in getting to it. Before even taking questions, he just got right to it. Said that's not winning football. I personally am embarrassed by it. We got the unit together. We have a plan going forward to make sure that none of that happens again. And you could hear it in his voice. He was absolutely pissed off beyond all belief that this even happened. Like 8 pre-snap penalties. Come on, that's insane to have that many in there. And this is a big thing for the Vikings to correct heading into next week. We know that the Lions game, they had a little bit of execution problems with the fumbles and the bobbled snaps and just tripping over guys and things like that. And then this week completely fell off the rails with those pre-snap penalties. So now you have to try and right those wrongs. Kevin O'Connell was saying that's on him. Wes Phillips saying that's on him. JJ McCarthy saying that's on him. It's on a lot of people on this scenario, but now it's a matter of the offensive linemen going out and doing their job. And like Wes Phillips said in his press conference, just simply not jumping before the ball is snapped. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Is you can do all you want with the hard counts and getting them used to the cadences and things like that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to those 5 guys not jumping before the ball is snapped. So that is a huge thing with this offensive line and something to look for. Heading into the next game, it's going to be a big topic of discussion because of how many penalties they had last week against the Ravens pre-snap. So here's hoping they can correct it for this week ahead. But there has been one constant that has been around on this Minnesota Vikings offensive line, and that has been Will Fries. And he did speak on that as well, saying that Will is like the ultimate O-lineman. He just wants to go out and kick ass, come off and rock and hit people, and you love that about him. And Will Fries has been probably the healthiest offensive lineman that the Vikings have had all season as far as the starters are concerned, and been the only consistent mark for them in JJ McCarthy and even Carson Wentz at times. Carson Wentz having that familiarity through the Indianapolis connection as well too. But Will Fries having that security blanket there where at least we can count on somebody to be healthy this season. Donovan Jackson went off with that wrist surgery. Brian O'Neill was hurt with that knee injury. Christian Darrisaw, of course, still recovering and getting his timeshare of snaps here and there, but still missing a game here and there as well. Then, of course, we got Ryan Kelly, who's out with another conky. So there's been a lot of injuries for this offensive line, and JJ McCarthy not having all the pieces around him. But at least Will Fries has been that constant, and he's had a really good season. He's got a lot of upside. Even Wes Phillips was saying that he has so much potential with this career. Is very young, and he's still starting out and still going through that rookie deal. And now it's a matter of just correcting some of those games that even he knows he has to correct to make sure that he can become a great player in this league. Minnesota has done a really good job at developing really good offensive linemen throughout the decades. I know it's been some rough patches here and there. It hasn't always been perfect, but Minnesota, don't forget, has had some amazing offensive lineman history. Of course, you got Steve Hutchinson. Of course, you got John Sullivan. Then, of course, you got Brian O'Neill right now. Christian Darisoff. Phil Lodeholt was really solid for those couple of years as well. There's been a history of great offensive linemen for this Minnesota Vikings team, and Will Fries could be that really good addition if he stays here for a very long time. But let us know what you guys thought about all this down in the comments below. And what do you guys think about the Chicago Bears and the Vikings matchup coming up this week on Sunday? Do you think that the Chicago Bears get revenge on us, or do you think that we can finally get a win to right the ship and somehow remain undefeated in the division? And that is a huge thing, I think, for the Vikings here, is if we can get a win against Chicago Bears, we go back to 500, so we stay alive in the playoff race, and it goes a long way for the division, where the Green Bay Packers, over half of their final games are division opponents. The Lions, they got a lot of division games coming up too. So if those are scenarios where the Lions and the Packers lose those games and we can steal a win here and we can remain undefeated in the division, that's a really good sign for us, where we could maybe walk away with the division if we get some help from other teams in those matchups against the Lions and the Bears and the Packers. So let us know what you guys thought about all that down in the comments below. And what do you think the Vikings playoff chances are, if you are just already packing up thinking for next season, or if you're still holding on to hope that we can make the playoffs this year. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.